Carolyn Doobie here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm going to be doing some selective masking as I make an art journal page. Now this all started when I had a print that I really liked and I kind of saw a hill in it. I wanted to put a hill on it, but I didn't want to just paint it on. I could have just painted it on with a brush, but then guess what? It looked like I just painted it on with a brush. I love the look of gel press prints because you get that artsy feeling to it. There are all these imperfections in it. It's just not a solid piece of color. You've got, well, the magic of that gel plate in there. So how do I capture that when I know exactly where I want it on there? Well, you can mask things off and position them with the help of simply ripping some paper and using the properties of the gel press plate to your advantage. Now, what's the advantage? Well, you'll see as I use it to position things to get it where I want it. And as a side benefit, I also wanted to use a rubber stamp on it, and I was able to just ink that stamp up with what was already on the plate. This is the print that I want to put a hill on. And I've got all that wonderful color up there, but there's one color that I don't really like a whole lot of there, and that's the purple. So I want to rip my hill so that it will kind of cover up a lot of that purple. I don't know why, I'm just not feeling the purple vibe today. So I'm going to give that paper a rip. This was not scientific, this was not that careful, and you'll see how very forgiving this is in just a moment. So I'm going to put that on the angle that I want on the paper. So this is what it's going to look like finished. Where the white paper is, that's where I'm going to have my paint going. So I kind of position it and I realize, the hill is just too steep. Magically, if I just kind of turn the paper a little bit, I can get the proper grade for my hill that I want. I'm going to hold it right where I want it in place just with my hands, and then I'm going to flip it over onto the gel plate. Now I'm flipping it over straight for the print, not for where my ripped paper is, because that was turned at a funny angle. I'm going to leave that there, and now I'm going to bring in the other half of the paper, the part that I'd ripped off, and I'm going to line it up approximately where it was. So just putting the edges up together. And when I pull off the bottom piece of paper, that's actually where I'm going to put the paint. Color I'm coming in with is black, and I'm putting a fairly generous amount of paint on there. And you'll see why when we take the pull. I'm spreading it around with a brayer, and again, there's lots of paint on here, potentially maybe a little bit more than I had to use, but well, squeezing it out of the bottle, it's not exactly like it's a precise science. Now I'm going to clean off my brayer, but I'm only sort of half cleaning it off. I'm not really fully getting all the black paint off, and you'll see why in one of the later steps why that's handy. So I'm going to peel off my mask here, and I've got my rolling hill going on. The next thing I want to do is bring in the rubber stamp. I'm using a hand-carved rubber stamp because I love having the really thick, bold lines of a hand-carved stamp for this, and I'm pushing it right into the paint. The paint that's already on the plate is going to act as my ink pad that's going to load up a nice even coat of the black paint on it. And then I'm going to position my owl on the hill, and I'm just going to gently tap it down. I don't want to wiggle it around. I don't want to smear it, that kind of thing. And then I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to use the brayer that I hadn't completely cleaned to brush over that black down there that makes it all smooth and solid again. So in one fell swoop, I've got the hill as well as a place to load up paint onto my stamp very evenly so I can get a good impression using a rubber stamp. As I'm taking this pull, I've positioned the paper about where it would go. Not like this stuff is like down to the centimeter precision, but it's going to be about where I want it to be. Part of the reason why I love doing this with the plate instead of just painting it on with a brush is because you get little bits of the background showing through. Now this owl, there might be a ghost owl on here, so I'm going to take the ghost print. You never know exactly how much is going to come off on the ghost print, and I've got my fingers crossed that a lot of the owl comes through. So I'm giving it a little extra rub there to make sure it comes up, and as I lift up, yep, there is a wee bit of a ghost there. Well, I want to include some words on this art journal page, and I want it to look like it belongs. So I'm going to bring in a stencil, but if I were to just straight old stencil the words on there, it wouldn't match the vibe of the paintiness of the owl and that beautiful hill where the colors are peeking through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the plate to help me make sure that it looks the same way as everything else. So really it's going to look like I did it all at once, but I really didn't. I'm going to find a spot on the plate, it really doesn't matter where, and I'm going to put the stencil down. Now, why are the words backwards? Well, when putting words on a gel print, you need to put the words on backwards. That way they're legible when you lift up the print. I'm bringing in a cosmetic sponge with some black paint, and I'm simply pouncing right on top of the words that I want to use. Using a cosmetic sponge allows me to sort of laser target or focus in on just the part that I want to use, so that way it's just the words that I want, which happen to be "Go Be Magic." Now, why did I choose those words for this uplifting stencil from StencilGirl Products? Well, the reason for that is because of that little owl. He just seems like he is just doing his very best. He was actually supposed to be very straight, but has a little bit of a tilt to himself. That wasn't intentional, that was an oops. An outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly that I think has given him even more personality. Now the part where I want the words to go, that's the part of the paper that I put right on top of them. And when I lift it up, the words are going to look like they belong there because they're going to be done with the same techniques that the owl was done with, the hill was done with, so it's all going to blend and belong. So now just a few finishing touches to the art journal page. And yes, I was checking to make sure the black paint was completely dry, and guess what? It's not, but I'm not willing to wait for it to dry. So I'm just going to kind of gently work around any paint that's still damp. So what am I scribbling about while I'm journaling inside the wings of this owl? Well, this owl is just striking me as a spunky little guy today, so that's what I'm writing about in there. Now, I had more to say than what would just fit in the wings, so I just started writing a little bit more underneath the words. But the owl still needed one last little something. As I was looking at it, I realized it's the eyes. The eyes need a little something there. So to put a little bit of white around it, I brought in one of the Pitt Pen white pens, and that gave me the white around it. Now I gave it a second to dry, and I checked to make sure that it was dry before I brought in another Pitt pen and just put a little trace of blue right around there, so give a little color to my owl's eyes. And now he feels completely ready for the challenges ahead of him climbing that hill. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play, and thank you for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.